Could President Trump get the deal he wants and claim to have won this war with Iran and still lose his political war with the Democrats? Is it possible that Republicans get wiped out in the House of Representatives, maybe in the Senate? Could Trump and the Republicans lose control of each or both parts of Congress, and it be a devastating political defeat this fall in the midterm elections? And if that weren't enough, could Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have done serious damage to the Iranian regime, to Hezbollah, to Hamas, and in many ways feel like he has done what he wanted to do, even if he wanted to do more? But could he end up being wiped out? He and his Likud party and his right-wing governing coalition, could they be wiped out in this fall's national elections in Israel? Good evening and welcome to the Rosenberg Report. I'm on Capitol Hill tonight. I'm in Washington to assess these two questions, because for anything else you're hearing, deal, no deal, good deal, bad deal, in the end, President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu are going to be assessed as the dust clears from physical fighting, kinetic fighting, and from deal making. They're going to be assessed on whether the American people think this is a good deal. We got what we needed. We did what we had to do. President Trump, I may not agree with you on everything, but good job. Excellent work. Or are they going to say, what in the world? Why did you make those concessions? Why didn't you use your strength of hitting Iran so hard and finish the job? And these are big questions. Okay? And the same thing for Netanyahu. Netanyahu doesn't have freedom of action, right? He's a super close ally of President Trump. But President Trump, you have to know this, a couple weeks ago was dropping more F-bombs on Bibi Netanyahu than he was actual bombs on the Iranian regime. That caused me some serious pause, and it raised some serious questions. President Trump, why? Why are you beating up on your best ally in the Middle East? Even if you guys have disagreements, why are you letting your team leak this stuff? Why are you dropping F-bombs on Netanyahu and not actual bombs and missiles on the actual enemy? These are big questions, and the polls show right now that Trump and the Republicans are in danger. They're in real trouble here on Capitol Hill of losing control, at least of the House. It's possible Republicans could lose control of the Senate as well, but that seems a little less likely. But right now, Americans are not happy with President Trump's performance. They are not happy with the price of gas. Okay, yes, the price of gas was higher under Joe Biden, absolutely, tremendously higher. And yes, the price of gas was higher when Trump took office, but then of course the price of gas plummeted under Trump. But with this Operation Epic Fury and the tensions and the volatility in the Middle East, in the Gulf in particular, gas prices have risen because oil prices have risen, right? And so people see that, they feel that, and that has the polls showing that Americans are not happy with President Trump. So the question about why is Trump working so hard? Why has he been trying feverishly to get a deal with Iran and telling us over and over and over and over again, it's imminent, it's almost there, we almost got them, they want a deal even more than I do. But there's been so much of that it's caused a lot of Americans, a lot of Republicans, a lot of conservatives, a lot of evangelicals to question, is Trump too desperate for a deal with Iran? Now, here's the point. The point is not how people feel today. I mean, that's important. But the question is, how are they going to feel in November when they go to the polls, right? And it's not just Republicans. I mean, the Democrats hate Trump already. They hate the war with Iran. They don't see it even having been necessary. They don't think he's handled it well. They don't think he's handled the economy well. But what do we expect, right? So, but independents also are against Trump on the war with Iran. They're against Trump on the economy, on gas prices, and that's the key, right? Republicans are starting to turn against Trump on some of these issues. Not in massive numbers. Trump is still well over 70% in his support, but that support among Republicans for the war in Iran has declined in recent weeks. I think that's spooking President Trump. And of course, gas prices. There's another element, because people keep asking me as I've been traveling around, Lynn and I have been traveling around the United States, speaking at churches, meeting with Joshua Fund and All Israel News donors and so forth, and meeting with evangelical leaders. And people keep asking me, why does Trump seem so eager, almost anxious, almost desperate to make a deal with Iran? Doesn't he understand that how much Iran has been doing to attack ships in the Gulf and fire 30 ballistic missiles or more at Israel and encourage Hezbollah to keep attacking Israel from Lebanon and so forth? Doesn't he see all this? Doesn't he see all the rhetoric? And why does he think he could trust what's left of the Iranian regime, the original Iranian regime that we were dealing with? They're all burning in hell now, but all their underlings are negotiating this thing. Why would President Trump think that he could make this deal? Isn't he making a deal with the devil? And I think the president really is genuinely worried about whether he and the Republican Party can control Congress going forward. Because if he doesn't, if he loses control of the House, not only will his entire legislative agenda be shut down, but Democrats will be in charge of every committee. They can start investigating anything and everything they want. They could try to impeach him again. They can stop budget bills that will fund all of Trump's initiatives. This is a big deal, okay? And if he loses control of the Senate too, then he really is a lame duck in many ways over the next couple of years. And it will be very, very challenging for whoever's going to emerge as the Republican nominee running for president. Is that J.D. Vance? Is that Marco Rubio? Is that somebody else? Is it a contested primary? Those are big questions. Trump wants to come through the midterm elections with strength. He wants to get the Iran issue behind him. It's not just Republican anxiety over the war and independent anxiety over the war and gas prices. Those are not the only issues weighing on Trump. The other major issue, which no one is talking about, is it possible that the United States and Israel and our Arab allies don't have enough missile and rocket interceptors to shoot down what's left of Iran's missile capacity? What if Trump hasn't been fighting aggressively and just punishing and destroying and vanquishing Iran's military assets and trying to get a deal because he fears that if Iran starts launching all kinds of more missiles at the United States, at our troops in the region, at Israel, at our Arab allies, that we don't have enough missile interceptors to shoot them down, and that the effect could make the war look much more devastating going forward than so far. These are big questions, and I think all of it is in the mix. I am not comfortable with where the president is, but he has done some significant things right. Hi, friends. Every week for the last few years, the headlines have seemed louder and crazier. As someone who spends a lot of time analyzing events in the Middle East, I can tell you the world has entered a very uncertain season. Conflicts have been escalating. Global alliances are shifting. Markets are reacting. These aren't isolated headlines, they're signals. We're living in a time of global shaking. And when the world feels unstable, it's wise to make sure your finances aren't exposed to unnecessary risk. That's why I want to tell you about Preserve Gold. They help Americans diversify their retirement savings into physical gold and silver, including gold IRAs, as a hedge against economic instability. Gold has served as a store of value for thousands of years during times of crisis and uncertainty. This isn't about panic, it's about preparation. And right now you can get their free wealth protection guide by texting report to 50505. Plus, with a qualified purchase, you could receive up to $15,000 in free gold or silver. If you have an IRA, 401k, or savings account and you're concerned about where the world is heading, now is the time to get informed. Don't wait. Call 844-820-2181 or text report to 50505 today to receive your free wealth protection guide. Why is President Trump so willing to make a deal with this Iranian regime, what's left of it? Why does he think this deal is so fantastic? I'm pretty skeptical, and I'm not the only one. And I'm here on Capitol Hill. Why? Because there's going to be a referendum on this deal, and President Trump's handling of foreign policy generally, the Iran war in particular, U.S.-Israel relations, and the economy, and oil, and gas prices. All of that is going to be assessed. It's up for referendum this fall, right? When Republicans and Democrats go to the polls in November and decide who's going to control this chamber, right? Who's going to control the legislature? Who's going to control the House of Representatives? Who's going to control the Senate? And even if Americans were like, woohoo, this is the greatest deal we've ever seen, President Trump, you rock, even if they said that right now, and they're not saying that. But even if they did say that, would that hold up through July, through August, through September, through October to Election Day? Since they're not saying that right now, and a lot more can play out, yes, maybe over time, it'll look like, yeah, things really are quiet. Trump was right. He made the deal that needed to get made so that the Middle East would quiet down. Maybe we'll start to see a series of peace deals. Maybe we'll see Prime Minister Netanyahu and other Israelis go, you know what, we were skeptical at first, but it's turned out pretty good. We're happy. That's possible, and we should pray for that. But I think it's also possible that starting with Americans and members of Congress, including Republicans, are going to get uncomfortable with this deal. I think it's possible that Iran breaks this deal, that Hezbollah breaks this deal, that Hamas starts firing at Israel again. I think there's some concerns here that a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, this deal looks worse than even its skeptics think of it at the moment. So these are big issues, okay? These are big issues. The polls do not show that the Republicans are going to hold the House of Representatives this fall. That could happen, though, right? And with the redistricting and a strong campaign come starting after Labor Day, things could tighten. The Republicans have a lot of money. So I'm just saying that this deal and its effects on how people perceive Trump and how they see Republicans who support Trump, this is going to be a big factor, okay? And there is a possibility of a blowout, that the economy will not be doing well and that people will take out their frustration on Republicans in the House and possibly even the Senate to send a message of massive displeasure to President Trump, and he could lose control of the legislative agenda as he loses control of the actual running of the House and possibly the Senate. So I'm not predicting that. I want to be clear, I'm not predicting that. But I'm saying this inflection point this week is a big factor in how that plays out in November. Now, if you look at Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu, almost every poll shows that he does not have a route back, him and his coalition, to remain in governing mode, right? There's only one poll of a right-wing sort of Fox News, almost a Newsmax-esque network in Israel, cable network. They have a poll that's consistently showing Netanyahu and his center-right coming back to power. That could be true, but every other poll says that's not true, and that the question is whether the opposition can coalesce. Not just left-wing opposition and not just centrist opposition, but right-wing opposition also. They are working on building a coalition together to take down Netanyahu and create a national unity government. Now, right now, depending on the week, depending on the poll, sometimes the opposition overall, if they get their act together and they work together, they could get 61, 62, 63 seats. Other polls show them 56, 57, 58, 59. You have to get at least 61 seats of the 120 seats in the Knesset to gain a majority and put together a government. So the question is, can the opposition do it? Now, as you know, if you're watching this Rosenberg Report this spring, I interviewed Naftali Bennett, the once and possibly future Prime Minister of Israel, the guy who knocked out politically Bibi Netanyahu several years ago, and has seemed like he's the guy. If the opposition can do it at all, Naftali Bennett would be the next Prime Minister. And as we talked, he was riding high in the polls, and just days after we did my interview along the Tel Aviv seashore, what happened? He created a political alliance with a centrist party, and they shot up even higher, and they seemed like the dominant political party, and it seemed like Netanyahu was really in for some serious political trouble, and that Naftali Bennett was going to be the next prime minister. However, That was weeks ago. A lot has changed. Since that high mark, that joint party, which is known as biyachad in Hebrew, which means together, this idea of pulling all of the opposition forces, right, center, left, together with Naftali Bennett at the lead, that party has started bleeding out political support. Voters started shifting away from Bennett and that Together party, and they started separating themselves from Together. Okay, about enough votes to accumulate to about 1 seat a week. Now, where have those seats going? Or where are those votes going? They're going to another ally of Naftali Bennett and Yair Lapid, a former IDF, Israeli Defense Forces Chief of Staff named Gadi Eisenkot. Now, Gadi Eisenkot is a very interesting political figure that we'll look at more, and hopefully we can even do an interview later this summer or fall. I've met with him, I've gotten to know him, I'm watching him closely, and I'll talk to you more about him. The key, though, is this. He has been going, in his party, from about 11 or 12 seats, they've been clicking up about 1 seat a week throughout the spring and summer, and now they're at, depending on the poll, depending on the week, 18, 19, 20, 21 seats. Some polls now have Naftali Bennett and his coalition party together, neck and neck with Gadi Eisenkot. Could Gadi Eisenkot become the next prime minister of Israel if the opposition gets enough seats? Will he say to his colleagues, look, I know you're good men and I want to work with you, but I'm the one that's been on the rise. The public wants me. And in fact, in head-to-head matches between Netanyahu and Eisenkot is emerging as the guy that people want to be the prime minister. Head-to-head, Naftali Bennett versus Bibi Netanyahu. Netanyahu has actually been doing better in recent weeks. One more name that you need to know about, we're not going to get into all the details right now, but Avigdor Lieberman. Avigdor Lieberman was known as a Russian immigrant. He's a right-winger. He opposes giving away Judea and Samaria. He opposes this Iran deal, and he is saying that he wants to be the next prime minister. And his party, Israel My Home, Israel Batenu, he is at about 8 or 9 seats. And so there is some discussion now, even if Naftali Bennett and his team and Gadi Eisenkot and his team, even if they combine forces, they're still going to need Avigdor Lieberman. And Lieberman might say, I'm happy to give you my 8, 9, 10 seats, but only if you make me the prime minister going in. A lot to discuss, a lot to consider, and we're in the early dog days of summer, as it were, but I just wanted you to be aware of some of the big things that are brewing, because Netanyahu and his right-wing coalition faces a very big storm is coming at them, and it may be turning into a tsunami. Too early to say, but the Netanyahu team could get washed out to sea politically. I'm not advocating it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying you need to be aware of that. Likewise, Republicans in the House and Senate that back Trump, as people evaluate this deal and gas prices and everything else, a storm is building, according to the polls, and that could turn into a tsunami as well. Again, not advocating it, not saying that's definitely how it's going to play out, but these are two things you need to be watching closely.